I'm a second generation immigrant to the States. So my parents were the first ones to go abroad to the US. And so they grew up in Taiwan because my sister and I grew up over there. Our communication and their communication was a little bit different. And so we would have a lot of conflict, especially me, because I'm the older child. It was very foreign to them because it was the first time they were raising a kid and they were raising a kid in a foreign country. During the adolescent years, my relationship with my mom was so rough. I couldn't really get through her, but she also couldn't get through me. But what I appreciate so much is the fact that my mom is so open and she's so bold, not afraid, and would always just open up these opportunities for me to express myself. I'm a little bit more closed off through the multiple doors that my mom has opened up over the past few years. I feel like our stream of communication has really opened up, and now our relationship is perfect and really fantastic. Hi, everyone. Welcome to 北腔南调. I'm Melody.
I'm Victoria.
And today we'll be talking about communication style. So we wanted to talk about communication style today because Vic and I come from different backgrounds. We lived in different places, and we feel like we've had different relationships and ways of communicating with different people in our lives. So according to Albert Mehrabian, a researcher of body language, 55% of our communication is nonverbal, 38% is vocal, and only 7% is communicated via words. And so in this digital age where most of our communication is communicated via text, WeChat, emails through Slack, I think it's really interesting for us to talk about this topic today to see how we can effectively communicate our words to somebody else. In addition to that, there's also very different cultural nuances that affect our communication with other people as well. So today we wanted to talk about communication in Greater China, so the different provinces, as well as comparing communication in the East and West. Vic, do you want to start off with anything in Greater China?
Yeah, I think also brings us to why we're calling our Chinese name is 北腔南调, because I'm born and raised in Beijing and in the northern area of China, and Melody is in the US and in Taiwan is the southern area of China. So that's why we are having this name, and then we realize we have things in different, how we communicate to each other. So as a Beijing girl, and I think how we talk to each other, how I talk to my family or friends, and also at work, I'm very 直接的 person. I'm very direct and I'm proactive. I think that's how Northern people do. And from the experience, because I was study and lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. When I talk to them, I feel like they are more 内敛的. They don't really talk so direct with people, and they are holding something, especially for girls from Taiwan. They're when they talk, they're very soft and they're very I think Miley can share about that more.
Yes. So coming from Taiwan, I think it's just part of our culture where girls are supposed to be a little bit more passive. So dia is when a girl has very high pitch and they talk in a very sweet, soft, extremely high-pitched voice. You hear this when you go to 7-Eleven. You hear this on TV. All Taiwanese girls are portrayed this way in media. I think it's a very typical way for Taiwanese girls to speak. For me personally, I find it very hard to understand. I spoke to a lot of guy friends over here. I'm like, why do girls speak like this? But I guess guys really like it over here, and girls just appeal to this male gaze, as Georgie stated a couple episodes ago. Just if the whole culture and society appreciates this type of voice and way of communicating, then girls are going to continue doing it.
After speaking about girls, I think men are different too. Especially that's gonna be a very huge difference. The men from the area and in the southern area. So I think in Beijing, people are I really enjoy talking to people from Beijing. I think because they are so direct and there's a word in Chinese called 局气, but it's not how you hold a relationship. It's when you talk about them, you feel comfortable. But the people in the southern area, and I talk to them, I feel the men are pretty gentle. I feel in general, overall, the Chinese men are quite passive. So when they talk to girls, probably express themselves, they're more like in general passive. Don't really want to take the first step. I wonder how like in the US, all the style of the people like talk communication style there.
Mainly stayed in California. I think guys are just very chill, but girls are very chill as well. They want to feel smart though. They catch up on the news. They really want to talk about different social issues and kind of show their stance as well, like show their understanding of the world and show that they can provide some kind of knowledge to the conversation and contribute to it. So whether it be speaking about finance or economics, what's going on in the news, or plugging in NFTs in the conversation to be like, hey, I'm also looped into this thing. I think guys do want to showcase some kind of like knowledge, and knowledge is power in this sense, as opposed to the way they speak.
That's a common thing between like no matter where the people come from. Like when men talk, they want to talk about like news, politics, sports, and to show they read a lot. I think that's a common thing. Like when the communication, like especially men talking to men, also like men talking to women. But I feel like girls, when we talk to each other, we really have some deep conversation. It's not because we don't care about the news, we don't care about the politics. It's just like we care each other more. I think that's a very different communication style between men and women. It's not really a Western or like Chinese thing.
Ah, that's cool. That's interesting for us to know as well. Like there's so many different styles when it comes to communication, when it comes to gender, culture, age as well.
Yeah, I think I can think like a very different way when we communicate with our family is like, especially our relationship with our parents. I think that could be a big difference from in the Western US or in China. I know a lot of parents and also like they don't know how to express their love, and they don't do verbally. Like you mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, like only 7% of the way we communicate through verbal, and they don't like really say I love you. And I think I barely say this to my parents, and that's how like Chinese family, how we communicate each other, and like right, like hug them, and also another way to express communicate. And that's what we really do. But I think for the US, right, when people met each other the first time and they give a hug, or like a good friend, they haven't seen each other for a while, or like not even a while, maybe they see each other every day, the first thing they do is give each other a hug. That's the very different style how we communicate each other.
Absolutely. And I'm a second generation immigrant to the States. So my parents were the first ones to go abroad to the US. And so they grew up in Taiwan, grew up on the values of Taiwan. So when they first moved abroad, they had to adapt to the different communication style over there. My mom, couldn't really speak English. And so she had to learn a lot of the things over there, not only the language, but also the communication style. And so she was always like, why are people always asking, like, how are you doing? Because she would actually respond, but nobody actually expects to have a response when they're asking, like, oh, how was your day? How are you doing today? And so that's very interesting. But also because my sister and I grew up over there, our communication and their communication was a little bit different. And so we would have a lot of conflict growing up, especially me, because I'm the older child. And so we had more friction growing up because maybe they wouldn't understand like the perspective that I was coming from, because outside in school, I was communicating a certain way with my peers or with adults, and bringing it back home, it was very foreign to them because it was the first time that they were raising a kid, and they were raising a kid in a foreign country that they weren't used to. There's definitely some kind of friction there as well.
I think back to, I don't know, like 20 years before, there's no much social media, right? So now we have a lot of channels we can see. Also, like there are a lot of people from the Western and live in China, and we got influenced by them. So how we communicate, how we express ourselves are changing as well. I think especially for younger generations, I hope like they know how to express themselves and know how to express love. Because like I definitely influenced by my US friends around me. So I'm trying to start open myself and to express my love to my parents, and trying to influence them as well. So like the other day when I'm back home, like my dad said this to me, I was like so surprised. I'm so happy. My dad said like, you are so beautiful. I was like, You didn't even look at me. You say me, I'm beautiful. It's like typical man. But he was like, you are shining. You are shining. And actually, we are all sunglasses at home. I was like, oh my God, this is my dad. This is my
Oh my
dad.
gosh, that is so sweet.
Yeah, my dad is like he had like a humor in inside him, and he's so smart. So like I was like, oh, it's so touching. I'm so happy. And I think back to 10 years ago, like even 5 years ago, he never say something like that. Like just typical Chinese men, they're like don't know how to express themselves. But like I realized when I influenced by the people surround me, I influenced my families, my parents as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so sweet and heartwarming. Literally just made my day. I'm going to wear sunglasses all day for you, Victoria, because you are shining.
I Before I rarely say I love you to my friends. But like the other day when I listened to a podcast, he was saying like in your whole lifetime, you're gonna meet 10 different type of person. There's a one type of the friends is they're gonna support you no matter what you decide to do. So they support you without any condition. You should message them now and tell them you love them. I was like, oh, it's even like 10, almost 11 p.m. I grabbed my phone and messaged my friend because I can think one or two of them. And the other day, it's like I had a call with my friend. I told her like, I love you so much because you are the one of the person going to support me without any like condition. I love you so much. So
That's so sweet.
yeah. So I'm like, I feel good. They feel good and I feel good.
I
So I
love
think
it.
how we communicate to each other is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I think those are always such good reminders, listening to podcasts or seeing, a different article online, just reminding you to like actually let people around you know that you care about them rather than just expecting them to feel that love through the services that you're providing them. Don't be shy, just communicate with other people. I think this goes on to the next different category, relationships. So I wanted to talk about different style of communication when it comes to relationships, especially at the early stages. I would be messaging people, and what I realized is guys are very, very passive in Taiwan and
In China too.
in China as well, right? And passive, I guess, is a negative term in the way that I would talk about guys. And I would just talk to my girlfriends and ask, like, why are guys so passive? But then when I talk to guys who are in Taiwan or in China, they would then say, no, they're actually trying to be very respectful of the woman. And so that gave me a different spin on this whole situation. So the example is, you first meet a guy, whether it be on an app or in person, like introduced to you by a friend, you now have each other's contact information. I feel like guys prefer to just communicate via text for like a month, which to me is way too long before they ask you out on a date to hang out in person. Because imagine you're just like texting this person every day or like every other day via text. And the only thing you're saying is like, good morning, good afternoon, good night. How was your day? What are you eating today? It's like, you're really not talking about anything. And so I asked my guy friends, I was like, why do they do this? Like, if they want to talk to you, then they should just ask you out in person so that you guys can have further developments and to see whether or not you are even a match and whether or not you guys have, common hobbies. Because if you're just communicating online, you're kind of wasting each other's time, at least in my opinion. The guys are like, oh no, they want to make you feel comfortable before they ask you out on a date because they don't want you to feel like you're meeting a stranger because there's like stranger danger. So that was really interesting because for guys, they're probably a little bit slower paced in their ask because they want you to feel like you have developed some type of relationship with this person online before you are asked to spend like hours with this person in person.
This back to at the beginning how we communicate with each other. So if you're only talking to people through phone, you might not know them enough, especially if you don't have a deep conversation. I think it's so hard to connect with people only by talking them on online. So like what you want to check out if you want to have a relationship or have a like friendship with this girl, just ask them out. And you will know immediately after you see this girl, right? Have this suggestion for girls as well. So if you really enjoy talking to this person, then you can ask them out, right? You don't have to wait until like man to take the first step, right? It's 2022, right? We can be in charge of our own life.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to actually meet in person, maybe at least initiate a phone call. Hear this person's voice first, or initiate a FaceTime. See if you're being catfished, and then you can meet in person. I think any kind of communication outside of the texting realm is preferred for me because I just find texting to be so dead. It's just words on a screen. So that is not my preferred way of communicating, but other people might prefer this way of communicating.
I think also for in relationship is how we communicate in Chinese culture is we don't really easy to say we like you and we love you. I love you, something like that, right? One type of girl is they want to wait until they confirm the guy is in love with them and they will say like I love you too or I like you. Back then we were like we really have asked each other like do you want to be my girlfriend or boyfriend? And nowadays people don't even ask that anymore. They're just like we kind of like in spiritual we all go great. Okay, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. We don't talk about it, right? We don't really talk about do we want a serious relationship or we don't. I think for the Western culture, it's different. So people like to communicate with you at the beginning. Something like, I don't want to get into a serious relationship. I want to know that so we can talk. And someone like, I want to get into a serious relationship. Is this what you want? I think that's so different between like Western and Chinese culture and how we communicate.
Yeah, I think that's a huge difference then, especially since in the West right now, there's so many different types of relationships. You can have the traditional boyfriend girlfriend relationship, or you could have an open relationship, or you can have a mutual understanding that you're only together for now, but you don't want to be married in the future. Or you just want to have a relationship with this person, but you want to have a baby with another person. So people's relationships with other people are so different. And so it's important to establish that by verbally communicating so that there is no further misunderstanding if they are developing a different type of relationship with other people.
At least also think about like communication, right? If you meet with this person, at least you talk to this person on like online and make sure you are on the same pace, right? I think that's a good thing. Like when you do have that conversation at the beginning. So make sure it's not that you want a serious relationship and the guy just wants something casual. And then that's going to be a huge problem at the end.
And so there's a lot of movies that are also like, oh, maybe both of them just want to play around, like no strings attached or friends with benefits, and then eventually develops in a relationship. So it's not necessarily to say that what you think in the beginning is actually going to happen at the end. Maybe you guys do want to just play around, or maybe one person wants to just have an open relationship. The other person wants to have a serious relationship. That doesn't necessarily mean that you guys cannot continue chatting, because as you continue developing and hanging out with one another, you might have different thoughts. But I think that open communication at the beginning is important so that at least you don't get more hurt later on.
Totally agree.
How about communicating with friends? Do you think there's a difference in the way that you communicate with people in different provinces in China, or just people in the East or West? Because I feel like you have such a diverse group of friends, Vic, because you've worked for so many different types of organizations with people who come from countries worldwide. And so how does that affect your communication with them?
I don't think like I think that depends on what kind of person you are. I really love talking to people And I really have a lot of good friends in the US or in China. The way I was talking to them are the same. So I don't talking with different person using different tone or different like having different conversations, but just like I gotta say, like I said before, I got influenced by my friends in the US a lot. And I take that and to change myself, how I communicate with my friends. And I think also like recently, like in 1 or 2 months, I change how I talk to my friends. So when I appreciate them, I just told them because you don't like bury that in your heart and nobody knows, right? Even though maybe they know you love them, but they don't know how much you love them. So you need to say that. You need to express that. Because I really have a lot of good friends and they support me. They don't question me and the decisions I made. And they just want to protect me. And I want to let them know I'm so appreciated to have you in my life. So I think that's a good way to express yourself, to communicate, because you need the people know you love them. So also like I recommend you try it to talking to your friends like that and to see how they react.
I like that too. That just reminds me of the time I got my driver's license when I was 16. My mom took me to the DMV in order for me to get my license. I took the test, and then afterwards, I was really happy because I was like, yay, my first time taking the exam and I passed. I was kind of like internally celebrating. And my mom was not happy, and I didn't understand why. Well, first she was kind of like, well, yeah, of course you should have gotten your driver's license because put you through lessons, and it would actually be bad if you had to take it a second time. Then I would have to take you back to the DMV a second time to take it in like 2 weeks or something like that. But then also at the end of that day, she told me, she was like, I feel sad that you didn't thank me for my time, for taking you to the DMV, for sitting, maybe an hour or something like that for me to complete my exam and then going home. And so after that incident, I realized that my mom really appreciates like words of affirmation and verbal communication, not just the nonverbal communication that I might have been providing her that day. And so since then, I've provided her more like verbal confirmation of, my love for her. So whether just like simply saying, I appreciate you, mom, or like, I love you, or thank you so much for X, Y, and Z that you've done. I've realized that that's the way I need to communicate with my mom. Whereas for my dad, I feel like if I constantly said, thank you for realizing I was very tired today and taking out the trash, he'd be like, why are you saying this? Of course, I'm going to take out the trash. Like we've been working all day. The last thing you want to do is take out the trash, So he'd be like, why are you saying this? So I think my mom is more influenced by the West. She went there for college. She's lived in the States for longer time. And she also worked in the public education system in the States as well. And so she's constantly like involving herself in like these ways of like verbally communicating, hugging people, and like more outward expressions of love and like communication. And so she really expects that in return. Whereas my dad is more like about the nonverbal element where it's just like a given that you appreciate other people without actually having to say it.
I think that's a very good example how your mom talking to you. I think she started a candid conversation. It's like, why I'm sad because you don't appreciate me. It's not you don't appreciate me, just like you didn't express yourself. So I think in that conversation is we don't really have in the Chinese culture. I don't think parents talking to their children, like talking to their kids that way. Because how we communicate each other is so important. And I really liked how your mom talking to you and make you realize I need to change how I talk to my mom. And at age 16, and that's a perfect age to know that.
I definitely agree. During the adolescent years, my relationship with my mom was so rough. We had so many conflicts because there couldn't really like get through her, but she also couldn't get through me. But what I appreciate so much is the fact that my mom is so open and she's so bold, not afraid, and would always just open up these opportunities for me to express myself. I'm a little bit more closed off. And so through the multiple stabs and through the multiple doors that my mom has opened up over the past few years, I feel like our stream of communication has really opened up. And now our relationship is like perfect and really fantastic.
I know we talk a lot about the differences, like the culture, different background in the Chinese, Eastern and Western. But like at the end, I want to quote from a friend, a wise man, but he taken himself as a 渣男. That's what he said. I 100% agree with this. I think generally we are all just animals driven by the same raw framework of instincts, but how we process them is what defines us. I want to say it's like, no matter you grow up in the Western or you grow up in China or in the US, we are human. The human nature is the same. Even though how we communicate each other probably different, but like it doesn't change our instincts, right? How we do, how we process it really defines us. So whenever I think for the people who listen to this podcast, this is a time for you to start thinking about how do you want to process yourself, process anything happen in your life. How do you want to communicate with each other, with the people in your life, with your parents, your friend, your significant others in your life? You should think about it and try to define yourself by how you're talking to other people.
Yeah, I agree. We come from the same place of trying to be understood, and we want to understand other people as well. It's just our way of expression and our way of receiving this communication is different. And so really reflect and think about the relationships that you have with the people around you. Yeah, I'm like glad that we had this conversation because it's really allowing me to really reflect on how I should be, communicating with other people.
Okay, let's end our episode with 3 questions. How do you feel right now?
I feel great. I always enjoy having conversations with you, Vic.
Me too.
And yeah, how do you feel right now?
Like I feel so much of love. So we had a conversation about like how the different communication style. Then I realized talking to you and may realize I have a great friend on the other side of the screen. And we love each other so much and we are doing this. It feels so good.
Love. What is something you're grateful for today?
I gotta say the same cliche, but also the weather. Because yesterday and the day before were so polluted and so bad. And today was great. And I'm going out after lunch and I'm going to surfing later tonight.
Wow, wait, that's so fun. It's raining today in Taichung, which is finally raining. We've had really good weather this whole week. And today I have a friend in town. Actually, very unfortunate that it's raining. But what I'm grateful for today is the fact that my friend is coming into town. I haven't seen him in, I want to say like 4 or 5 years. So it's going to be pretty exciting. The last time we saw each other was back in California, but I've been in Beijing for the past like 4 years and he's been in the States. And so he's finally back in Taiwan. And so we're going to see each other. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be so good to reunite it with your old friend, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of like what I'm grateful / energized about today. But what are you energized about, Vic?
Oh, I'm energized about I going to meet a friend. I haven't seen her for a couple months. So I'm energized about talking to her. And also I'm energized about the surfing. Like last time, like I went to surfing last weekend. It feels so good.
That's so exciting. Personally, I cannot surf. I get so seasick when I'm like standing on the board or just waiting for the waves, but I enjoy snowboarding. So hopefully I can go snowboarding sometime soon. Alrighty. Well, this concludes our episode today. Thank you so much for staying with us to listen and chat with us. Stay tuned on Wednesdays as we release a new episode each week. We hope to chat soon. Bye.
Bye.